Hi guys, welcome back to another video. In today's video we're going to have the highly requested and highly anticipated Mauling part 3 video, and if you haven't already, check out the other two parts. It's just a series in which I showcase me Mauling opponents, and as you can see in the background, two things. You can see that my previous 10 fights I've won all of them. I'm on a 18 win streak right now, records 27 and 30, and yeah, just absolutely tearing through opponents online. And again, this is going up the divisions, rising through the ranks. This is when the new season had just started. And throughout this video, you're going to have a wide spectrum of gameplay across all the divisions that I mainly play in. So you'll have the likes of Jon Jones, Daniel Cormier, Henry Cejudo, Frankie Edgar, Islam Makhachev, Brian Ortega, Khamzat Chimaev. You'll have loads of different fighters. So it really gives you a good insight onto how I use grappling, not just with one fighter, but with a variety of fighters with a variety of different skill sets. Before we get into the actual breakdown side of it, as you can see, there's only 13 seconds left of this round. Just want to say a huge thank you for all the support on the content as of recently. I think as of now I'm on 185 subscribers, which is a massive milestone. I'm getting a lot of good feedback on the videos, a lot of likes and a lot of comments, and I like that our own little community is forming. So a huge thank you to everyone. Also check out Grapplurr, who literally made my thumbnail for this video. It's the first thumbnail that I've actually paid for to be done, so let me know if you like the thumbnail. I'm hoping that you guys do, and if you do, it's something that I'll try to add in more of the videos in the future. Right now you can see that I've taken my opponent down here, Jared Cannonier. He done a good job of denying, getting me to side control. Goes to get me into full guard, but doesn't work. And you can see the round prior what the game plan was going to be. I'm going to get on top of this guy, and I'm just going to look to bully him. Jon Jones has a significant advantage on the ground when it comes to fighting Cannonier. The longer it's on the feet, the more dangerous it is. Jon Jones' leg health recovery is fairly low. I think it's around 88. And Jared Cannonier has a very powerful leg kicks, and not only that, has a lot of power in his hands. So this right here is exactly what I need to do in order to win. And one thing I noticed while getting these gameplays is just how easy it is to just continuously maul and maul people, and how quick people are to rage quit, or how quick people are to just sort of give up. Like, they could be winning the fight, the whole, let's say, 3 rounds, and then they get taken down at the end and lose it just because they don't have that bit of composure to wait and look for the right transitions. You're going to see that there's a Islam gameplay in this video in which that opponent, I think I'd gone 3 rounds with him in a 5-round fight, and was doing very, very well. First takedown that I do land, instantly get a submission finish. So it's just little things like this, and this is the easiest way to win fights. I know a lot of people don't like this style of fighting, and I can understand if you don't like the style because it's incredibly toxic or incredibly cheesy. Like if I was doing the clinch submissions over and over, I would understand that. Or if I was going for, you know, that trip that Henry Cejudo has, Petr Yan has, there's a beat trip, I'd understand if it was constant stringing together stuff that's almost like undeniable. But when it's grappling like this and it's just persistency, not even spamming too many punches to build up GA, but it's just the right thing to do. It's a tactical way of winning the fight. And if you do want to win on ranked, I've showcased time and time again that this is the way to do it. Is you take your opponent down, you build up the patterns, you figure out how they play, where they transition to on the ground, you get them in side control, you throw those elbows, or you do whatever ground and pound you can from whatever position you can, and you look for a submission finish. And predominantly that is how I finish most of my fights. I get submission finishes. And in case you're new around here and you don't understand which submissions that I recommend, it's going to be the armbar from side saddle or crucifix, the Kimura from side control, which transitions to an armbar, or the rear naked choke, sometimes the guillotine. Those are the main submissions that I use in order to win fights, and you should see a fair few of those throughout this gameplay. And right now it's circulated to a clip where I'm using Khamzat Chimaev coming up against a Yoel Romero. And Yoel Romero is an elite wrestler, obviously. Pretty sure he went to the Olympics. very good to wrestle with on this game, and Khamzat Chimaev, we know what Chimaev's going to do. He's just an absolute wrecking ball, and you can see that I'm denying the transitions well, maintaining the advantageous position, and that's the key thing you want to do. Whenever you've got someone onto a ground, and there's a 50-50, for instance, and there's a position, let's say in this position here, my opponent can either go to side control or flip me. So he's obviously going to want to flip me because that's more advantageous to him. Whereas I already know this, so I'm just going to look to pre-deny that and make it a lot easier for me. You always want to pre-deny the side in which it's more advantageous for your opponent to get to and makes the fight a lot harder for you. As you can see, transitions to a gameplay here where I'm using Daniel Cormier, trying to avenge his losses to John Jones. I get on my opponent's back and he does a good job of getting on top of me here, but I'm just going to be patient, get the deny off there, and then we get the transition straight to half guard. So you use all the momentum, you build up some GA. I flick the right stick to go to I think it was to get up, then you hold L1 and it transitions straight to half guard, and then from that, of course, it brings us to where I am now, building up GA, and I'm either going to look to pass or deny. Get the deny off here, couple punches, go straight to side control, and this is an extremely dangerous position when you're with someone that loves to grapple and knows how to submit people properly. I know that DC's got good submissions, especially when your opponent's stamina's low. You can see that I opt to go for the crucifix first because I wanted to get my opponent out of there. You know, so it's a grudge match. I didn't want to get that submission finish here. I wanted to really hurt my opponent. And you can see overall, easy 3 deniers there. Shoot for the submission, I believe the Americana. And I waited until my opponent's stamina's at a level to where it's either non-existent or I just have such a big advantage. It's just going to be statistically incredibly hard for my opponent to escape that position. And you can see that do a good job here of submitting my opponent. He gives up towards the end and we get the submission finish. And this is the only frustrating thing about this playstyle, is that you are going to get a lot of rage quits, which hinders you in the sense that you don't get all the points you should have. And I get my opponent down here. It's going to be another John Jones gameplay here, and this was in a new fighter they recently added. This was like my first time going up against this fighter, or maybe second, so I was really interested to see how my opponent used him. You can see from the health stats on the right hand side, which is mine, I'm in the blue corner, that my leg health is completely deteriorated. My opponent had done a good job in dwindling that away across the 3 rounds, and I believe, if I am correct, he was actually up 2 rounds. So in this round here, it was pivotal that he didn't, you know, make any mistakes. And like I said, once I get into that side control position, once I get into that submission, it's virtually over. And now we're going into a different weight class here. We're using Aljamain Sterling, go for the takedown, in which my opponent does a good job of denying, catch the kick, push him towards the fence, and you'll notice again what round's this in. This is in the final round, and this is where I'm saying that sometimes I won't necessarily always start my fights off by being very grapple heavy, but when it's dwindling down towards the end of the fight, and I know my opponent doesn't have the stamina advantage wearing away, all I've got to do is catch that kick, take my opponent to the cage, and it's going to be a very, very easy takedown, because a lot of people struggle to deny the takedowns, especially when it's against the cage, the turning ones. You take them there, you can dump your opponent on their head, you can take their back and suplex them, you can double leg straight into side control. There's a lot of options, and here you see I'm going for the bulldog choke. I'm not really sure why I went for this, to be honest. I think it was just because my opponent's stamina was quite low. I was very much aware of the fact that I probably wouldn't get this submission finish. However, it gets me a good gauge of how good my opponent is at getting out of choke submissions. Aljamain Sterling's obviously an incredible submission artist, and one thing to note is that from north-south he has that windshield choke, which is incredibly powerful, and that is a choke submission. So I wanted to see if my opponent had any habits that I could learn off that submission and take over to the windshield choke if I needed to. But opt to go for the Kimura here, and as soon as I transition to the armbar, I'm just so confident with this submission. It's not my favourite submission anymore, but you'll see I utilise it still heavily, and that's just because more people have this submission available than the armbar from side or crucifix. But if I am with a fighter that has that submission available, I'm always going to go for that, just because I feel like it has a higher success rate. Get the finish here against Petr Yan. You can see coming up here against the TJ, get a big powerful single leg here. There's like a high crotch, dump him, and even using like someone like Frankie Edgar just to mix things up. Obviously, very good, clean, crisp boxing for Frankie Edgar, but it's really the wrestling that's very dominant. Coming up against the TJ Dillashaw, who in my opinion on the game is an extremely balanced overall MMA fighter. He empathises perfectly what it is to be like to be an MMA fighter. He's got every aspect that you need. He excels in it as well. He's not just average at everything. He's very good at everything when it comes to MMA. So this isn't an easy matchup by any means, especially because Frankie Edgar doesn't have the best statistics. But as long as I'm able to control my opponent from this position here, it shouldn't be much longer before I can get finished. You can see I'm being patient, and it's right now that I think I realise that, oh, okay, my opponent's just given up. Probably put the controller down. Probably going to send me a hate message just to say like, oh, why'd you play like that, but that doesn't matter. Get the victory. And here I'm using Triple C. Another big takedown after I got a rock on my opponent. Dump him in the middle of the octagon. And the reason I'm rotating away from the fence is I don't want my opponent to use the fence in order to get up. And this is something that, if you ever do get a power double or power single, I'd really consider that just moving the takedown away from the fence. It can really change the likelihood of you getting a finish, because if your opponent's by the fence, there's a lot of things that could happen. They can use the fence as a reversal and end up getting on top of you, which of course isn't ideal. That's not exactly what you want to happen. And they can also use the fence to cage walk up, and sometimes it's quite difficult to deny the transition in which your opponent, you know, just starts cage walking up. So I always, if I do get a power double or power single and pick up my opponent, I will always move them away from the fence, always. Sort of like, you know how Hamzat picks up his opponents in real life and takes them to his corner, and then he beats them down. It's a similar thing to that, except I take them to the middle, and in the middle is where I'll look to do the work. But you can see on screen now, chaining the takedowns very well. Every time my opponent's getting up, grabbing him, keeping a hold of him, and utilising the position and getting takedowns. You see, got a good turning takedown there, straight into side control, and overall just dominating my opponent. And in this Mauling series, it's not necessarily me showing you just the quickest finishes I get and, you know, how easy it is to get these finishes. It's a realistic way. It's showing you this is the stuff that I have to go through. And you can see that just beating up my opponent here, really laying into him. Don't have great stamina. My opponent does have the stamina advantage because obviously I was throwing a lot of strikes just then. Getting the deniers here. Go for the choke. And I've got a minute left to work with. So in theory I have enough time to lock in this submission. For you guys that don't know, the markers I have set in my head as to when I go for a submission is, if it's anywhere between 50 to 60 seconds, that is when I'll go for a submission. Anything less than that, it's going to be incredibly hard to lock it in at the right time. Therefore, I don't go for it. And you can see in this submission, even though my opponent had no stam, I had full stamina. My opponent done a very good job of getting out of this submission. 16 seconds to work with now for my opponent. I wasn't too worried, get the deny there, as you can see. And it just goes to show you that it's not always going to go your way. I done everything right there, was riding my opponent, doing some good damage, got onto his back, controlled, didn't let him get to half guard, and looked to get the submission finish, and unfortunately I didn't get it. And that was round 2 of that fight. And you can see starting round 3, I'm going to have to look to do more of the same, because I know that that is the route for success. I've got to be careful here. My opponent's head health is very low, and again, that's just dividends because of the work that I've done before. Beautiful takedown there. And whenever your opponent, if you're a wrestler and your opponent is backing up towards the fence, I cannot emphasize this enough. You have literally, not literally, that might have been an exaggeration, but you have such a wide variety of ways to secure that takedown. As you see there, he went for the power takedown and then ended up picking him up and slamming him. You can do so many things. You can clinch and then take their back and then jump on their back, or then do a turning takedown, or just a regular takedown. There's a lot of things you can do. My opponent does a good job here of getting up, swayed, drop my opponent here, go for some ground and pound. Opponent does a very good job of denying. And what do? Rather than waste stamina, I conserve the stamina, move into a more advantageous position, and then again continue getting back to work, and it's sticking to the game plan. It's not getting overconfident, overzealous. It's understanding when and what to do at the appropriate times. And these elbows are absolutely ripping TJ Dillashaw's head apart and end up getting the finish there. As you can see, it wasn't clear cut. It wasn't the easiest finish in the world. Had to work for it. Opponent done a good job. Here I'm using Vettori. Now Vettori, I just like to say, is I don't think he's used nowhere near enough at middleweight. I think lately I've been enjoying the middleweight division a lot, especially trying to diversify my skill set and use different fighters. I know I've just recently uploaded the video using Jack Hermansson, which if you haven't seen already, please do check out. He's a very good fighter to use, but Vettori might be becoming my favourite fighter to use at middleweight. And right now I'm coming up against a Rob Whittaker, and everyone knows how good Rob is. Rob is ridiculous on this game. Rob and Petroyan, they're different level to everyone else in their weight class. They literally feel like a cheat code. Rob especially is just an absolute beast. So what do? I get him down with Vettori, and I'm just going to start working my opponent. I'm going to be patient. I'm going to throw the ground and pound, and this position here is very advantageous for my opponent. It's easy to get up as long as they do the right things. You can see my opponent makes the mistake in trying to transition. I deny. Done some good work to the body as well, which is only going to hinder his body health. But a lot of the times, getting into the sprawl as the defensive fighter is the easiest thing to do. And often or not, the referee will stand the fight up because there just won't be enough going on. So the ref will go, okay, you know what, let's stand the fight up. And if you was the fighter that was in the worst position there, the fight didn't want to be on the ground, it's even better for you. But you can see in the gameplay here right now, doing a good job utilising the ground and pound. And although I get a lot of submission finishes, you'll see throughout the gameplay clips in the video that I do also get ground and pound finishes. Although I do find they are slightly harder, especially when posturing up and looking for a finish, because there's a lot of ways to get reversed, especially coming up against someone that's as diverse and got good reversals like Robert Whittaker. My opponent right now is getting mauled. This is exactly what a mauling should look like. You should be dominating your opponent. You should be getting the better of every single transition. And even if your opponent tries to initiate the grappling exchanges, you should end up utilising that attempt, reversing it, and making them regret it. And you'll see later on in the gameplay that I believe one of the opponents I'm fighting against, I may have controlled him for like a round or two, and then he decides, okay, I'm going to start the grappling, instantly regrets it. It's kind of like if you watch the Colby Covington Jorge Masvidal fight. There was a point where I think Masvidal goes to throw a high kick, trips because Jorge throws a low kick, I believe. Jorge, instead of just circling away and getting back into the middle of the octagon, looks to opt to go into his guards. Colby grabs a hold of his leg, pushes him towards the fence, reverses the position, and then just gets absolutely mauled. So you've got to make it their mistake. You've got to make them be so frustrated that your opponent's like, you know what, this is really annoying me. I'm going to try to grapple him, see how he likes it. That's fine. Let them grapple you, because that's exactly where you want the fight to be. All it's going to take is the slightest mistakes, and then you can reverse your opponent and end up in the dominant position. You can see the second round started here, and the strikes I'm utilising is all to get the takedown. That is the whole purpose of me striking right here when I'm using Vettori. Every fight starts on the feet, and it's about using the right combinations, closing the distance appropriately, knowing when to shoot the takedowns. A lot of the time I use the fence to get the takedowns, and I can't emphasize this enough. If you want to wrestle and shooting the double legs isn't working in the middle of the cage, or the single legs, you can't get any of the turning takedowns, take your opponent to the fence. It doesn't matter how good of a player they are. Sometimes it's just incredibly hard to deny when someone's doing a turning takedown on the fence. And I've seen this with high level players, like for instance the YouTuber that I think is the best in terms of skill on UFC online ranked is GOAT. And sometimes during these live streams I can see that even when he gets taken to the fence, it's harder for him to deny those turning takedowns off the cage. And you can see my opponent ended up quitting, and that's the reality of mauling your opponents. A lot of them are going to give up, they're going to fumble, they're going to break, and it's going to be incredibly annoying because you want to get those points. I'm not too worried about ranking up. It's just a bit annoying when it happens consistently because my win to loss ratio remains the same. I'm still, going on a very good streak, but it would just be nice to cap it off by getting a lot of points, especially sometimes when you're fighting guys that, say I'm in Division 15, they're Division 20. I would have got a lot of points through that, but they end up quitting, so you don't get as many. But that's how the game goes. And right now, we're using the quote-unquote King of Miami, Colby Chaos Covington. And you'll see how I just mauled this Conor McGregor. Got the cage takedown, as you saw. I used the leg kick before I got the takedown to stop your opponent circling away. And I think that is a crucial aspect, is diversifying how you set up the takedown. So a lot of the times my opponent knows I'm going to push them towards the fence as the rounds progress, because that's exactly what I've been doing in the rounds before that. And they try to circle away, which is the exact right thing to do. As the defensive fighter, you want to rotate away so I can't get you onto the fence to get that takedown. And as they rotate away, I can do a number of things. I can throw a roundhouse to the body, potentially knock them over. But the thing I opt for, rather than that or a hook for instance, is I throw a leg kick. It stuns them, it stops the animation, I shoot in for the takedown. And that's exactly what I do. And you can see that right now I've got my opponent's back. I don't really want to throw too many punches because obviously your opponent can push you off, they can thrust and then you'll end up falling off. But doing a good bit of damage there. Unfortunately the cardio doesn't hold up. Get another good deny. And I think I go for the choke here. It wasn't my best decision purely because my opponent still had good stamina. However, these mistakes are made. You can see my opponent's getting out of this with relative ease, but right now I think it's a good point to talk about. I'm thinking of doing a fighter showcase series, similar to if you guys watch JMMA, who I have played before, in which he tries to specialise in a certain fighter, like he's done Wonderboy Thompson, he's doing Charles Oliveira now. I'm thinking of doing potentially Colby Covington, maybe Zabit. Obviously, I don't know if Zabit's ever going to fight in the UFC again, so it might be the last time that I can use him. Any fighters you'd like to see, let me know in the comments if you would like to see it. Just drop a name doesn't matter who it is. But yeah, I'm thinking of using Colby just because I really like the fight style that he implements. Obviously, very wrestling heavy, but it's a very cardio heavy approach, and I really like that. And you can see in the second round, after my opponent getting mauled, what does my opponent decide to do? With Conor McGregor, bear in mind, he tries to take me down, and does take me down, and he's now trying to wrestle me after getting out wrestled for the whole of last round. And this is what can happen. This is what I was trying to say, is that your opponent can get so frustrated that they think, yeah, I'm going to do it to you and just see how you like it. And I'm very calm from here. Why wouldn't I be calm? Shake Conor McGregor off, throw a little punch there, and now I know that, okay, once I get you down, you're going to break. Mentally, my opponent just broke there because it took me down to try to get some control time and deter me from getting these takedowns. It's not going to work. Throw the overhand there because, using Colby Covington, he likes to throw those overhands. We saw it against Jorge. I went for the suplex there, it didn't work, and then we dragged my opponent down, turn it, and back on top. And this is exactly where my opponent doesn't want to be. It's not where any opponent wants to be. No matter how good they are off their back, no one really wants to be in this position. I'm trying to make it as uncomfortable as possible, throwing good bits of ground and pound here. And that's one thing, Colby's ground and pound is absolutely unreal. This welterweight division is stacked with people who have unreal ground and pound. You've got Colby Covington, Kamaru Usman, Khamzat Chimaev, the prime GSP. Their ground and pound just feels so strong. And I don't know how to word it, but my opponent reverses position, gets back to the feet. You see I sway across and I shoot the single leg, turning takedown. Why? Why did I shoot the single leg and not opt to push my opponent towards the fence? I got away from that strike. Opponent didn't have stamina and wasn't expecting me to shoot like that because all the prior times I haven't shot in that manner. And it's about mixing it up. And what does he do? Breaks. Coming into a Vettori fight here. I believe this opponent was ranked quite highly when I believe my opponent was ranked quite highly. I think I'm in the 3rd round at this point. Obviously, the rounds before this, can't remember what happened. My opponent could have been absolutely smashing me. It could have been 50-50. But I'm only showcasing parts of fights, otherwise this video would be too long. I think it's already going to be around the 30-minute mark, which is where my laptop sort of can't render anymore. So I try to time and keep my videos at this level. Again, if you want to see more of this style of content, let me know. I know these videos do very, very well. I'm anticipating this one does also. So leave likes, subscribe if you're new, comment that you'd like to see more. And it's something that it does take me a long time to get around to making these videos, purely because a lot of the gameplay you're seeing here you won't see on my channel. Like, this is dedicated to this series. Like, it's not other videos that I've gone on and just saved the gameplay on my I've just re-recorded it. No, this is all new gameplay, so it does take me a while. As you can see, I think I've showcased about 11 fights here, and of course there's a lot more I could have, where it's just quick little rage quits, but these I thought were the best of the bunch. I'm using a whole wide variety of fighters. If there's fighters you'd like to see me specifically use in the next one, let me know. I think in this one we've had a good range. Khamzat Chimaev, John Jones, Daniel Cormier, Frankie Edgar, Aljamain Sterling. You've got Islam, Brian Ortega, Vittori, Triple C. There's quite a good variety, I'd say. And get my opponent out of there with the ground and pounds. And this is where I was saying that it's not always submission finishes. Using Brian Ortega here, T-City himself. Really enjoy using Brian Ortega as of lately. Got him in the clinch, pushed him towards the fence, took Jose Aldo's back. I'm trying to transition to top mount here. I was going to go for the go-go platter. Deny my opponent's transition. Go for the armbar rather than the rear naked choke. Just because, you know, the rear naked choke is, let's be honest, we all know it's very, very broken. So I thought, okay, let me just go for the armbar finish instead. So yeah, that's exactly what we're going with here against this Jose Aldo player. You can see, still the first round, my opponent's got quite a good level of stamina, although I can't actually see it at the time because I'm ranked. I think this must have been above Division 15. No, Division 15 when you stop seeing opponent's health stats. And we lock in the armbar submission here. And again, using Brian Ortega, I'm going to get you to the ground. I'm going to look for that submission finish. Opponent rage quits straight after. And I think this might be the last gameplay clip. So yeah, I think it may be the last gameplay clip, and we're using Islam Makhachev, the future of the lightweight division. Can't wait to see who he fights next. Probably going to be Dariush, and this is the fight I was on about earlier, in which I was having a great fight with my opponent. Opponent was Division 20 at the time. My opponent was doing solid work on the feet. I wasn't able to get the takedowns. As soon as I get the takedown, locking this submission, game. I know it's done. I'm not even the slightest bit worried. As soon as I get to that transition, I know it's over. So this is going to be the last gameplay of the video. If you guys did enjoy, don't forget to leave your like. If you are new around here, please subscribe for more UFC 4 content. Once again, thank you for all the continued support. I'm really appreciating it. Thank you for all the likes, the comments, any sort of interaction. Any content suggestions or recommendations, improvements, let me know in the comments below, and I'll catch you in the next video. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you have a good day.